Hello, this is Math with Beth, and we're going to get started with factoring with quadratic trinomials with a is greater than 1. What that basically means is there's a number here that is larger than 1, so you can't do the easy type of factoring where you go straight to the parentheses and have your final answer in one step. So there's a couple different ways to do that. I'm going to be doing it with the AC method. So what that means is you first take the a and the c, the number in front of the x squared and the number by itself, and you multiply them together first. Find the factors of -6. So what two numbers multiply to -6 that add up to this middle number, which in this case is a -1. So you could have a 5 and a -1, whoops, a 6 and -1, but that's not going to do it. Or you could have a 3 and a -2, which would almost do it, because if we added that, we would get 1. So now I know I just need to change the signs, and these are the numbers that would do it. So these numbers are used now to rewrite the problem, not to go straight to the parentheses and get my final answer. So the 2x squared stays the same. The -3 at the end stays the same, but I use these two numbers to rewrite this -1. So I write -3x plus 2x. So you make sure that you put the x with those two numbers. So now we factor this with grouping. So if you are not comfortable with grouping, I would probably pause and go watch a video on grouping, so factoring with grouping. But if you are comfortable with grouping from here on out, you should be fine. What can I take out of these two terms? An x. That leaves me with 2x minus 3. What can I take out of these two terms? Nothing, but we still want to write something here. So if you can't take anything out, you just write +1. And then if the parentheses match at that point, which is what we want to happen, you can now do the last step where you take one of those parentheses out, and the other parenthesis comes from whatever two numbers are left. So what was in front of each parenthesis. So you definitely probably need to see that a few times before you get the hang of it. So let me do the next one. First step, multiply the a and the c. That'll give you a -12. So now, sorry. So now, what are the factors of -12 that could again give me this -1? And so they need to be two numbers that are together. So I know 12 and 1, 6 and 2, those aren't going to work. So it's going to be 4 and 3. I know one of these two numbers needs to be negative. So -4 and +3 is the only way this would work. So again, I'm now going to rewrite the problem with that -4x plus 3x, and then do factoring with grouping. What can I take out of these? 4x. Be careful here. If I'm taking a 4x out, make sure you don't think there's nothing left. There's always going to be a 1. And in this case, it would be a -1. And then again, I can't take anything out here, so I'm just going to do that +1 again. Hopefully the parentheses match, which they do. So final answer, 3x minus 1, 4x plus 1. Okay, let's do that one more time before I show you a harder one with a GCF. So 10 times -6 is -60. This one's a little harder to try to get to -11, so you might need to write out some of the options. 6 and 10 won't do it. 15 times 4 would do it if the 15 was the negative. 10x squared, I rewrite the 11x with the 15 and the 4. Make sure your signs are correct. And then I factor with grouping. I can take out a 5 and an x from the first two. And I can take out a 2, a +2. Oh, there should be a 3 from the second two. Now my parentheses match. That's how I knew I made a mistake right away, because I saw that my parentheses weren't going to match. So that's how I caught that that should be a 3. So it helps to kind of pay attention to what you're doing so you can catch a little mistake if you make one. Okay, so that's basically it. It definitely takes some practice, but now I just wanted to show you to not forget the first step of factoring is always to take out a GCF first. So I already knew I couldn't for these, so that's why I didn't even worry about it. But from now on, even if you think, oh, here's one where I need to do the AC method, first check if you can take out a greatest common factor. So 3, 24, and 45 all can be divided by 3. So your first step before you even worry about the AC method is taking out a 3 from each term. Now, in this case, once you do that, you don't even need the AC method in this parenthesis. This is a nice, simple factoring where you can go straight to your two parentheses because there's no number in front of the x squared anymore. So now I know x and x go here. I just need to worry about how can I multiply to 15 and add up to -8. You could list all of your factors if you need to, but I already can tell it would be -5 and -3. So that 3 needs to still be out there, but that's your final answer for factoring. Last one, same thing here. I could take something out right away. So I'm going to do that first. But this time it's going to be a little trickier because now I do still have a 2 there. So I'm going to need to do the AC method with whatever's left in this parenthesis. So I'm going to kind of go off to the side here. I'm going to ignore that 5 for a minute and just treat this as if it was the start of the problem. So I'm going to do my A times C. I'm now going to find the numbers that multiply to -30 and add up to +1. So that would be +6 and -5. I'm going to rewrite my problem with those new numbers. I'm going to take out whatever I can take out. So here, be careful. Most people would look at this and say I can take out a 5. But if you take out a +5, you'd end up with 2 negatives in the parenthesis. And I can already see that I want to have x plus 3. So instead of just taking out a 5, I'm going to take out a -5, and then that would do it. So now x plus 3 and 2x minus 5 is the answer to that part. But don't forget, we took this 5 out at the very beginning. So you got to bring it back out to get your final answer for the factored form. I hope that helped, and I will see you next time. Like and subscribe and all that stuff.